Well, several world leaders, including President Barack Obama, have declined Russia's invitation to attend its 2014 Winter Olympics. At the same time, a number of human rights groups are calling for a boycott. In response, Russian President Vladimir Putin has been busy trying to clean up Russia's human rights record ahead of the Games, but is it going to be enough? Joining us now is former diplomat Anthony SALVIA. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting relationship, obviously, the United States and President Obama. First of all, tell us a little bit about why the United States decided not to send, why the president isn't going.
Well, a number of countries are either not attending at a high level or not attending at all. And the reasons are various. Okay, it depends on the country. The Germans were the first ones to announce that they would not be sending their president, so he will not be going. This has to do with, there's a whole background to this. The Germans don't say exactly why, but we know that the Germans have had big problems with how Russia has dealt with its opposition. They accuse Moscow of having a general air of imperialism about its foreign policy. They object to that. And next thing you know, they announced he's not going. Others have other reasons. The Lithuanians are also not going. They're not sending their president. They object to Russian trade measures that have that have disadvantaged Lithuanian dairy products entering Russia. But also they were upset with what Russia has done in the Ukraine, which basically ruined the Vilnius summit that was held in Lithuania. They're upset about that. So with Obama, it's different. Obama simply said, "I'm not going." The White House hasn't said why exactly.
Well, we do know, of course, that with the Snowden issue, with the leaks and the pardons and different kinds of things there,
that's part of the background.
May be part of the background.
That's part of the
right?
background. They haven't said why, but the reality is also that when it came to the Chinese Olympics back in 2010, Obama didn't go. But
right.
It wasn't because he was protesting anything. He just didn't go. He sent Michelle instead.
Sure. But she won't be going, nor will.
She won't be going. And what happened was, right after the White House said he's not going, they announced the creation of a committee, to represent the U.S., which was made up of several gay ex-athletes.
Billie Jean King and Brian Boitano, and people
exactly.
that are out for, and
right.
Clearly so, Russia had their issues with homosexuals. And
they have on the books legislation that prevents what they call gay propaganda taking place in Russian airwaves, okay? To be clear, there are almost 80 countries that have on the books laws that criminalize homosexual activity. Russia is not one of them. Okay.
Right. It's just against the propaganda, like we said. Let's be clear, though, first of all, this doesn't mean that the United States is not participating in the Olympics. No, I just want to make that clear. This is just about...
And no team is not going. In other words, all teams are going. Teams are participating. It's a question of what countries are sending high-level representation and which ones are not.
Correct.
France, Germany, the U.S., Lithuania, our countries Georgia, for example, which is involved in a conflict with Russia over Abkhazia. So some countries are having this issue, and we see from entertainers like Elton John, Lady Gaga, sort of calling for a boycott.
Well, they just held a beauty pageant over there too, which also caused a little bit of controversy, I know.
Right.
What do you think? Putin is sort of trying to repair his image, right? He spent like $51 billion. He's pardoned Khodorkovsky, or gotten him out of jail, get out of jail free card, if you will,
right.
After a strained relationship there. Greenpeace, all those folks that had been detained, they're being released, dozens of them. What is this? How does this play into Putin's moves and his trying to come forward?
I think for sure he doesn't want the press story to be there are political prisoners in Russia. When everybody converges on the world into Sochi, where the Olympics are taking place, he doesn't want that to be the story. Okay, one issue will be, why isn't Obama here? Why isn't the president of Germany here? That's problematic enough. But he certainly doesn't want the issue to be, the question of political prisoners in Russia. So he's done this. He's released these people like Khodorkovsky. This is a very big move. I think it shows generosity. It's sort of a Christmas tradition also to be generous at this time of year and to pardon and amnesty people. He's done that. I think it's very positive, and I think that will help him at the Games.
I mean, what do you think about, you said, this is trying to mitigate or do a little PR for Russia at this point, and you've witnessed the country's relations, the United States and Russian relations for decades.
Yes.
Where do you think they stand now, and how will this impact, things going forward?
I wouldn't see the impact being too great. I mean, I think there's some very profound areas where the U.S. and Russia have to work together. Certainly Syria. The United States had no interest in having the Syrian government have chemical weapons, but then neither did the Russians, which is why they proposed this idea of eliminating chemical weapons from Syria. The Russians are afraid if things go bad in Syria and you have an al-Qaeda government or al-Nusra or an extremist government takes power in Syria and has access to chemical weapons, that's all going to blow back on Russia. So they want those weapons out of there. By the same token, Afghanistan, they don't want the Taliban taking over. They want the Americans to succeed in Afghanistan. And the Americans need to have a way of getting their troops out of Afghanistan, apart from just Pakistan. They need to get out of Afghanistan up through Russian territory to get out.
A lot of Americans, though, didn't really like it when that proposal came about, that the United States perhaps work a little bit with Russia on Syria on any kind of mitigation.
Some didn't. Some want a hardline, virulent anti-Russian policy. But I think Obama, and I'm not necessarily a huge Obama. I'm not here to apologize for Obama. All I'm saying is that Obama was wise enough to see the complexity of the issue and to act accordingly. And I think in this whole question of the reset with Russia, he's been doing the right thing, very much so. And I think that there's a lot, but by the same token, while we have these areas that I've mentioned where we can cooperate, there's also tensions. The U.S. has been attempting to move toward Russia in terms of getting ex-Soviet republics into NATO. This has the Russians very upset. The Americans are putting an ABM, an anti-ballistic missile system in Poland and Romania. The Russians feel this is a challenge. So the Russians feel hemmed in by the Americans. So it's a relationship that's very troubled. It's one of great potential and great current cooperation that's going on, but also fraught with difficulty.
Final question, just briefly. The Olympics have become such a media event in a way that they perhaps weren't decades ago. There's just so much more media out there via social media and online with internet. Do you think that plays a part at all in terms of what's being, paid attention to here in terms of the delegation?
I think so. If you look at the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer in Norway back in the 1990s, or the Japanese Winter Olympics in Nagano back in the 80s, the United States didn't send any representation of any kind, and nobody cared because it wasn't so political.
There's a precedent.
It's become much more. It is so big. The money, the corporate money, the attention, the prestige is so big to these games nowadays that these leaders feel they have to be there to share in that, to be seen in the reflected glory of the games, and so generally they go. And so when they don't go, it becomes a big political issue.
Well, Anthony Salvia, we appreciate your time. I guess just keep sports, and politics, and we'll be all set.
That's
maybe,
right.
Perhaps.
Okay.
All right. And this is Arise America.